MLB confirms lifetime ban for Pirates player. The camera caught everything. That is the detail that made this different from the disputed plays that baseball produces regularly and processes through the ordinary channels of review and explanation and eventual resolution. That is the detail that removed the ambiguity that these situations sometimes hide behind when the evidence is incomplete or the angles are insufficient or reasonable people can look at the same moment and arrive at genuinely different conclusions about what it contained. The field camera caught everything. Every frame of what Jacob Gonzalez did when Shohei Ohtani came sliding into second base. Every deliberate degree of movement. The knee. The elbow. The positioning that was not the positioning of a shortstop completing a baseball play but the positioning of someone who had decided that the space Ohtani was moving through was going to become significantly more dangerous before he arrived in it. MLB reviewed the footage. And then MLB did something it does not do often. Something that carries a weight that suspensions and fines and the ordinary disciplinary vocabulary of professional baseball does not carry. MLB confirmed a lifetime ban. For Jacob Gonzalez. For what the camera caught. For what happened in Game 1 between the Dodgers and the Pirates on a night that began as one of the most intense games of the season and became something that the sport will be processing long after the final standings of this year have been decided. The game itself had the atmosphere of something important before the first pitch was thrown. These two teams had arrived at Game 1 carrying everything that had accumulated between them across the recent history of their encounters. The tension was not invented by the broadcast or manufactured by the preview coverage. It was present in the dugouts before the lineups were announced. Present in the way the players moved through warm-ups. Present in the particular quality of focus that exists in a baseball environment when both sides understand that the game they are about to play has stakes that exceed the box score. Ohtani was in the leadoff spot. That decision by Roberts carried its own statement. Using Ohtani at the top of the lineup in a game with this atmosphere was not a casual choice. It was a declaration about how the Dodgers intended to set the tone from the first at-bat. It was a declaration about who they trusted to walk into the highest temperature moment of the game and perform with the completeness that the moment demanded. Ohtani delivered in the way that Ohtani delivers when the moment is largest. Not with a home run on this night. Not with the singular dramatic swing that turns a stadium into a single unified expression of disbelief. With the quieter, more sustained contribution of a player who understood that his job was not to produce one moment but to be a continuous problem for the opposing team across every inning he was involved in. 1 for 3. 2 walks. 2 runs scored. A stolen base. The stolen base is where the story turned into something that nobody in that stadium was prepared for. He was moving on the pitch. That detail matters because it means the window of time between when Ohtani began his run towards second base and when he arrived there was not long. It was the compressed, high-speed window of a stolen base attempt. Fractions of seconds making the difference between safe and out. Bodies moving at the velocity that athletic competition produces when the stakes are clear and the preparation has been complete. Gonzalez was at shortstop. He was in position to receive the throw. That was his job in that moment. To catch the ball and apply the tag and complete the play that the Pirates' battery had initiated when they identified the steal attempt and responded to it. That was the baseball version of what was supposed to happen next. What happened instead was caught on the field camera. The knee came first. Not in the path of a player completing a defensive play. In the path of a player arriving at a base. Positioned with a deliberateness that the camera documented from an angle that removed the possibility of misinterpretation. Then the elbow. Moving into the space that Ohtani's body was occupying as he came in low and fast in the way that skilled base runners arrive at second base when they have gotten a good jump and the throw has not beaten them cleanly. Ohtani lost his balance. The stadium saw it happen and did not immediately understand what it had seen. That is the nature of these moments in real time. The speed compresses everything into an impression rather than a clear sequence of events. People saw Ohtani go down. People saw him struggle to maintain his footing through the slide. People saw something that looked wrong without being immediately able to articulate why it looked wrong. The umpires were closer. And the umpires, after a review that took long enough to confirm what they were looking at, made a decision that sent the temperature in that stadium to a level that the previous 9 innings had been building toward without ever quite reaching. Gonzalez was ejected. The reaction from both benches was immediate. The Pirates responded the way teams respond when one of their own has been removed from a game. With the noise and the movement and the pouring from the dugout urgency that ejections produce when the player being removed is willing to contest the decision and the teammates around him are willing to contest it alongside him. The Dodgers responded differently. There was noise from the Dodgers' side as well. But it was not the noise of a team disputing an umpire's decision. It was the noise of a team that had watched something happen to one of their own and was processing the anger that came with it in real time with cameras pointed at them from every direction. Roberts was on the field before most people had fully processed the sequence of events. He was not calm. He was not performing composure for the benefit of the broadcast. He was a manager who had just watched his leadoff hitter be targeted at second base with deliberate physical intent, and he was communicating to the umpires exactly what he believed he had seen and exactly what he expected to happen as a result. The ejection had already happened. But Roberts understood that the ejection was not the end of this. He understood that the field camera had captured something that was going to travel beyond the stadium and the game and the night and into a conversation that the league office was going to have to engage with directly. He made sure the umpires understood that he understood that. The MLB investigation began before the game was finished. That pace reflects how seriously the footage was being taken by the people who saw it earliest. When the league office moves that quickly, it is not moving through the ordinary procedural rhythms of a standard review. It is moving with the urgency of an organization that has seen something it recognizes as requiring a response that cannot wait for the ordinary timeline. The footage was reviewed by multiple people. From multiple angles. With the specific attention of people whose job it was to determine not just what had happened but what it meant in terms of intent. Whether what the camera had captured was a baseball play that had gone wrong in the heat of competition or something that had been planned before Ohtani's jump from first base had even begun. The conclusion they reached was unambiguous. What Jacob Gonzalez had done was deliberate. The positioning of the knee and the elbow in the path of an arriving base runner was not the result of a defensive play completing itself in the compressed space of a stolen base attempt. It was the result of a choice. A specific, intentional choice made by a professional baseball player about how to use his body in a space that another professional baseball player was about to occupy at high speed. And that conclusion led directly to the announcement that nobody in baseball could remember hearing in the context of a single on-field incident in recent memory. Lifetime ban. The announcement landed in the baseball world with the weight that lifetime bans carry regardless of the circumstances that produce them. This is not the language of a suspension. Not the language of a fine. Not the language of a disciplinary action that a player serves and returns from and eventually moves past in the ongoing narrative of a professional career. Lifetime ban is the language of an ending. The language of a door closing that does not have a mechanism for reopening. For Jacob Gonzalez, it meant exactly what it said. People inside the game processed the announcement with the range of responses that a decision of this magnitude produces. Some said it was appropriate. That what the camera had captured was so clearly intentional and so clearly directed at a player of Ohtani's prominence that anything less than the most severe available punishment would have been insufficient. That the sport had a responsibility to communicate through the severity of its response that this category of behavior existed entirely outside the boundaries of what professional baseball would tolerate. Others wrestled with the permanence of it. With the weight of a career ending through a disciplinary decision rather than through the ordinary passage of athletic ability. With the question of whether lifetime was a proportionate response to a single incident regardless of how deliberate that incident had been. But the league office had seen the footage. And the league office had made its decision. Ohtani was examined by the Dodgers medical staff after the game. The examination found no serious structural damage. The balance loss had been significant enough in real time to alarm everyone who saw it happen. But the outcome, medically, was better than the moment had suggested it might be. He spoke briefly to reporters afterward. Not about Gonzalez. Not about the investigation or the ban or the footage that had been circulating since before the game ended. He spoke about the game. About the team's performance. About the walk that had set up the run. About the stolen base attempt in the way that a player discusses a baseball play that was part of a baseball game. The reporter who asked about the incident at second base received a response that was brief and honest and completely consistent with how Ohtani has always handled the external noise that surrounds him. He said he was fine. He said the team had won. He said he would be ready for the next game. 3 sentences. No performance. No invitation for the moment to become larger than it needed to be from his perspective. The field camera had already said everything that needed to be said about what had happened at second base. The league office had already responded to what the camera said with the most significant disciplinary action available to it. Ohtani did not need to add anything to that. He was fine. The team had won. He would be ready for the next game. That was enough. That was always going to be enough.